All right. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit here about Grohmann knives out of Nova Scotia, Canada. And this here is the number 4. This is the number 4 in carbon steel. Also comes in a stainless. These knives here have been around for quite a while. I believe sometime in the mid to late 1950s is when these knives were starting to be produced. The steel on this is C70, which is a European steel. I believe that Grohmann gets their steel from the European market. This is considered a German steel, C70. I have some Linder knives that are C60, and basically what the equivalents are is C60 would be like 1060, and C70 would be like 1070. Now, perhaps they add some other elements in there that may distinguish it from what we would call 1060 or 1070. But the bottom line is that's pretty much about what we're talking about in terms of carbon content. So as I said, this knife is C70, being the carbon steel. So it's a lower, we call it maybe mid-grade carbon steel. So we are going to have a lot of toughness with this knife, a lot of toughness, right? And some good, edge holding capabilities. And a lot of these things are determined by heat treat, obviously. I believe these knives are Rockweld somewhere between 56 and 58. And these knives are handmade. I spoke to the woman at Grohmann Knives when I had to talk to her about the order that I was making. And she said that the knives have 53 steps in their making process. 7 guys, 53 steps. Pretty incredible, I think. And, there are some discrepancies. Some I don't particularly think that maybe should have left the shop from what I can see. And I did contact Grohmann Knives and was told that they are handmade. They are handmade. So in my response to that was, well, I do have other handmade knives, and this knife has some of the biggest handle discrepancies out of any of my knives. And you probably can see it here. You see how this scale, how much smaller it is in terms of thickness. Nothing horrible, obviously. I mean, nothing that's going to change the way. And sometimes the camera work here doesn't quite do the discrepancy justice, but there is quite a difference. Could be upwards of close to maybe 1/8 of an inch. Whatever, I really don't care about something like that. The grind is perfect, really. Everything is perfect about the grind, where it starts down here near the ricasso and all the way out to the tip. So as some people have pointed out, the knife has almost sort of like a Nesmik type of design to it, which is great. I like that. And a little bit, at least to my eyes, maybe not to yours, but to my eyes, maybe sort of a little bit of a parang type sort of look in here is what this sort of reminded me of. In use, I've cut bait for fishing, things like that. Obviously, food prep. I have not batoned this knife. I'm sure it will do fine. I don't need to baton a knife every chance I get. Like I said in previous videos, I hate always repeating, but this is for maybe some folks who haven't watched other videos. I rarely find the need to baton, and I live in a cold environment, many times wet environment. a northern environment, and I seldom find the need to baton. On occasion, depending on maybe where the area I'm in, if I'm in a ravine and hemmed in by, taller cliffs and things where a lot of wood isn't available to go find, and maybe you have to make do with what you have, and maybe some stuff does need to be split, I use a hatchet. I know it's a novel idea, and a lot of the old timers used it, and it's still very popular. Axes, hatchets, the proper tool for the job. The thing I do like about this knife is that if I was ever separated, forgot, or lost my axe or hatchet, this knife would suffice for the short term to get me by with whatever I would need to do. And it could be a very benign thing. For instance, I was on a camping trip, and oddly enough, the first and only time this ever happened, I forgot a saw and an axe. Luckily, I had this SE6 here because I did have to do some campcraft. I had to make a rotisserie to do a rack of ribs and some other things around camp, and this SE6 here did well. So I wanted to use, like I always do in my videos, a little bit of a comparison here so you can see about what we're talking about in terms of the size of the knife. This Grohmann knife here, I believe, is about a 5.5 inch blade length and about a 5-inch cutting edge. It's from my understanding that the Grohmann is slightly under 1/16 of an inch. If it is, it's ever so slightly. I would pretty much peg it right around there. I don't have a micrometer to really measure something so exact. But from my experience, that's about what we're looking at here. So I'll just give you a little bit of a comparison so we can see some of this here. All right. Overall length is, I'd put it maybe roughly the same, right? I get that in view for you. Otherwise, it doesn't make much sense. There we go. I mean, they're about close. Maybe about half an inch difference, something like that. I don't give a lot of exact measurements because exact measurements to me are just that. They're just measurements. How does a knife feel? How does a knife use? And how does the knife carry? And overall, rough dimensions are what I like. Something around a 1/16 of an inch of something around 3/16 of an inch, great. If it's a shade under, a shade over, I gotcha. No big deal. In terms of lengths and things, if it's 5.2 inches or 5.4, check out the website. Manufacturers of all these knives list their specs if you are interested. Another thing that had sort of taken me a little bit by surprise was that there is no lanyard tube in here. And when I did talk to the woman about the difference in my handle scale thickness, I had mentioned this because I do own other Grohmann knives and they have a brass lanyard tube. She said that the Grohmann number 4 does not have the lanyard tube. So I'd like to give you another little comparison here. Let's see here. Look at that. Canada right on the blade. This here is a Bravo 1.5 Coca-Cola scales and A2 tool steel. So we'll sort of see here. Try to line them up for you. I'd say that's maybe about close enough there. Okay. And, this gives some a good comparison here. Obviously, this Bravo is nearing a 1/4 inch in thickness, and we can see there the difference. Quite a difference now. The great thing about this knife here is it will cut through hard vegetables quite well. These also come in, this is the saber ground version. These also come in full flat grind. I did not go with the full flat grind version. I may in the future. But I figured that this here would suffice. And it's not really that thick behind the edge here. It's actually feels good. As you can see, it's, we're getting got some staining on the knife and things like that. I do try to keep my stuff clean, wipe things down before I put it in a sheath. And, if it was used on a lot of, nasty stuff or whatever, perhaps wipe it down with an alcohol wipe if I get the chance, dry it off real good. The great thing about this is we can see the shape of this blade here lends itself well to working on a cutting board or any flat cutting surface, where we can sort of grip it from the top like you would your kitchen knife, and we can cut food, keeping our fingers somewhat off the cutting surface, but also the shape of the blade, we can scrape things and food off the cutting board or cutting surface into our cooking pot or pan, whatever that we happen to be using. And this has a great shape for that. The other thing that's really nice about this, that as a feature that I tend to like a lot on knives, and it was one that was on my 165 Schrade old timer, the vintage one that I've reviewed previously, is we have nearly flat handle scales. This is nice. I know it gives a little bit boxier of a feel. Some like it, some don't. Some want all rounded like a broomstick, and that's fine too. That's why there's a million different knives out there. So everyone can find one that they like, right? And many of us, like myself, are still on the search hundreds of knives later. But I like that flat scale because it lays in the hand flat, just like that. So any cutting from the side, the bigger game, things like that, even fish, this knife just lays right there. You can pick this thing up, and it just lays right on the finger pads, or lays right sort of in the palm like that. And I like that. If I get an instantly secure grip the moment I pick this knife up. There's no fumbling around for a second to see where it is. The other thing I like about this too is, heaven forbid I have to use my knife in the dark, or maybe use it quickly in an emergency in the dark, whatever it may be. It's quite easy to know what side the blade is on, right? From the handle curvature to certain features like a little jimping, this sort of ricasso here, we know what way the blade's facing in the pitch dark. It's a no-brainer, right? We're not going to have any issue possibly sliding up onto the cutting edge or trying to cut with the wrong side of the knife, where you might with this here, this Green River knife that I reviewed recently. Okay, in the hand, it feels the same this way with the blade up as it does with the blade down. And there's really no clear way to check if you were in very, very dim lighting, other than finding the cutting edge and feeling it grab, your finger. A little bit of staining going on with that knife. Good old 1095. So with these knives come several different sheath options. There is like the pouch, the flap army style sheath with the flap over that covers, the entire handle of the knife. There is a sheath with a retention strap that goes over this ricasso area here. There is a pouch style sheath that fits right, comes all the, up to some certain point here. And then there's this style sheath, because if you followed me long enough, you know that I am a fan of sheaths with sharpening stone, rod, system, whatever it is, integrated into the sheath. I like that for a myriad of reasons, and many of them would be self-explanatory. This here is made, as you can probably see, maybe you can't, this here is made out of Solingen, Germany. All right. And this is chrome vanadium. It's to my understanding that these steels are Rockweld between 62 and 64. So plenty hard enough to realign the edge of this particular knife. really about any knife for that for that. But now the thing too is, which I have not tried, and I don't know how this is alloyed or anything like that, but this possibly could become a another tool that you could use around camp as well, and possibly throw sparks with a piece of flint. Like I said, I haven't tried it. Don't plan on trying it either. You get yourself a regular steel for throwing sparks with a rock. Works better than the spine of a knife, and many other things that some people substitute for it. You got a little bit of this swedge here, this cutout on the blade. This tip is nice. It is nice in there. Let's just discuss the sheath one more time. It is 6 to 8 ounce grade ounce steer hide. Sorry here, I probably have a little bit more coffee today. I seem to be misspeaking a lot. So the sheath itself is plenty heavy duty enough, and we have a little rivet here, and that's nice. Nice double stitching in spots to secure that the stitch stays. Belt loop is a little small. That's a little small, but it does fit my belt. The nice thing about the smaller belt loop is the knife does not migrate all over the belt. It won't be hanging out near your back pocket 1 minute and hanging over your front pocket the next minute. It'll stay right where you put it because of that. The knife does fit secure in there, as you can see, right? Nice and secure. And so this is what it looks like here. You can see how this is in the back. And I know a lot of people don't really show the sheath up close on these too much. So I'd like to do that for you here. I put this paracord on, and you may wonder why so long of a length, but I also want, if I'm going to put paracord on something, I want to put a functional length of paracord on something. Something that's, at least maybe a foot long. So this way it's not just a tiny little piece. Well made, and we can see here how it looks down inside there. Now, a part of me maybe wishes that the knife went down maybe just another ½ inch or so, but I am positive that this should hold the knife pretty well. If I do run into any problems, I probably could figure out something, or get another sheath, or make one custom for this, but I would probably use this same design. It's actually a really, really nice design. So these handles come in all sorts of different, I believe you can get stag. This is the rosewood. I believe you can also get oak on some. You can get black micarta, and you can get water buffalo horn. I went with the rosewood. Rosewood is part of the family of Cocobolo. So, we have a lot of these features. So it's a very hard wood, very rot resistant. Doesn't tend to soak up a lot of moisture, very water resistant. And so I went with that rather than because the buffalo horn, I'll tell you, does look very appealing, especially with some of the vanilla colored or cream colored patterns that could be in that. But I want a knife that is a 100% field knife, 100% serviceable in the field, and I don't want to have to deal with a lot of handle maintenance. All right, you probably know my love for the MacV SOG Bowies and all those in the brass and the stacked leather and all those things, and it's great, and I love it. Those things do take some maintenance. This really shouldn't take any maintenance at all. I may not really ever need to put, even like any type of butcher block conditioner on this. If I do, that may be about the only maintenance ever necessary for this knife here. Well, I hope you enjoyed my ramblings, and this knife has a good feel in hand. It has a nice feel in hand. It is no doubt plenty durable enough, built heavily enough to withstand the rigors of the proverbial survival situation, or just general hard use, hard use around camp, maybe getting through the brisket on some game, splitting down some kindling, boring some holes for some different things. I mean, if you're into bushcraft and primitive fire, those types of stuff. And when it comes to food and those things, works really, really well. Very comfortable, very controllable. Balance point on this knife is pretty much right there. Just about where that handle, I'd say right in here. Maybe about 1/8 of an inch below the start of the handle here is about where the balance point is. So it's not a very clumsy knife in hand. Feels pretty nice. And the tip feels very controllable, which is important, which is very, very important. So in my quest to find a knife that could work for survival, could also work, in the kitchen, could also work for bushcraft, and could also work on game, things like that. I really like this. This is nice here. I'm sure that this patina will darken up even more, and I'm sure that this leather sheath will show wear on it as well, and this knife will look like a, really, really nice package that is well used and maintained. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry if I gave a little bit too much of a long-winded review. It's just my passion for knives. I'm sure you have the same, especially if you've hung on with me for this long. So take care. We'll have more for you in the future. Have a good one.